You never know until you get there. But we have a long script to write yet, so we'll see. Okay, and then another one I'll tell you about, which some of you may have even met the guy. Some of you Palm Springs residents for a while at all? Anybody been here for a really long time? Do you remember when Morton Downey Jr. used to come out here and do his business show?
Before my time,
Okay.
20 years.
Okay. Well, Morton Downey Jr., some of you know, is a talk show host, and he was a renegade talk show host. I hated him when he was on the air. I just thought he was a despicable guy, blew smoke in everybody's faces, and he was just crass, and he was just,
Wasn't Al Sharpton one of his guests?
Yeah, he and Al Sharpton, he punched Al Sharpton, they tumbled on the floor and rolled around and fought each other. I mean, he was a nutcase, so I didn't know what to make of the guy, but after I had finished the Mamas and Papas project, Universal said to me, there's a book out called Mort, and it's a memoir by Morton Downey Jr., and we think there's a story there because right now, at the time when this story was happening, reality TV and talk shows were at their peak. Sally Jesse Rayfield. I mean, how many were out? Remember, there was 20 of those shows on the air at one point. Jerry Springer, Phil Donahue. It was like tons of them. So they said, well, Morton was the king of that. He started that. So we think there's a movie there. So they said, we want you to meet Downey. So I thought, I don't want to meet Downey. But they sent me up to meet him in Woodland Hills. And going up the driveway, and his license plate, I see his car in the driveway, and his license plate says Loudmouth. So, oh God. So I go in and meet him. Well, I got to tell you, in 5 minutes, he was the most charming, lovely man. In 10 minutes, I realized that everything about the character on the talk show was fake. Totally fake. Just a character he created, nothing more, nothing less. Right down everything, even the smoking. I mean, he didn't even smoke as much as he smoked on the show. So it was a fake character he created. Morton was a rich man. He came from a wealthy family. His family owned Hyannisport and rented it to the Kennedys. He grew up with the Kennedys. Teddy Kennedy is his godfather to two of his kids. He was at Bobby Kennedy when Bobby Kennedy was assassinated, that famous shot where they're holding Bobby Kennedy's head up, he's laying on the floor. Morton Downey's feet are in that shot. He was there. So he ran for president at one point. This is all previous to the talk show. So he led a very colorful, very crazy, very wild life and had a lot of money. And his father was Morton Downey Sr., who was a very famous Irish tenor and known as the world's first superstar. And he also graced the cover, the #2 cover of Time magazine. So he had a colorful backdrop. And I thought, yeah, maybe there is a story here. And especially now that he's dying of cancer. Because I met him, he had cancer. And I thought maybe that's why they were sending me there to do another Disease of the Week movie, because I'd done a few of those. It was like, I don't want to do another of these. But it wasn't about that at all. So we started interviewing more. I realized within months, the book Mort was nothing more than just a source to buy and take off the table. There was really nothing there. It was just memoirs. Again, it was like, and then I did this, and then I told this one to go screw himself, that's all it was. But by interviewing him and doing constant interviews in his kitchen for a year, I got to see where there was a great story. Similar to the mama, Michelle, there was a great dysfunction going on between Morton's father and himself. Great dysfunction. Here was a wealthy kid who had anything he wanted, and his father never gave him so much as a kiss, a hug, or an I love you. No matter what Mort accomplished in his life, no matter what it was, even when he ran for the president and won 3 of the primaries, father didn't even say congratulations, son. Nada. Never said a word. Just was a bastard to him. In fact, if anything, criticized everything he did. So there was a thread line there and every time I bring Morton's father up in these interviews, I felt like I was hitting a trigger, and finally got to the point where I made him talk about it one evening, and for 3.5 hours, the tears, whew, I knew we had our movie. So it is the Morton Downey story, and it centers on that father-son thing, but we were still missing a thread line that the book didn't cover, and that everybody was afraid to touch on, including Morton. And that was, do you remember when he left the air, why he left the air? Anybody remember? He was thrown off the air because he lied about being attacked by Nazi skinheads in a bathroom in San Francisco as a publicity stunt. Called the police in on it, said he was mugged, they wrote a swastika on his head, and the whole bit. And an investigation went on for a year, and he was publicity, the news, everything, ratings went up, the whole bit. And he was on the air, he had skinheads on the air, you got him, no. And then all of a sudden there was somebody tripped on to a few little things that weren't making sense, and the real thing that broke the ice on it, I guess you say the straw that broke the camel's back is, why was the Nazi signal on his head backwards? Who would write it on his head backwards?
From here.
So that one thing led to another, and
Oh, that's fabulous.
so that put our project on hold because all of a sudden it was like, wait a minute, now we're dealing with a guy that did a bad thing here. So everybody was kind of quiet, and the producer of the Morton Downey show was a gentleman named Robert Pittman, who would go on to create MTV. So Pittman didn't want this nasty business out there while MTV was at its peak. So it just sat for a long time until several years ago, I decided to write a book. And this would be my first book. And so I'm writing the book Loud Mouse. I'm about 3/4 of the way through it, and I have a deal, and I went back to Doubleday, with a track record here as well. So I got an advance, so they gave me an advance. So it's not being published by them, but it's being developed by them. I'm about 2 years into the book. I will say it's a learning experience. I've done every kind of writing in my life, copywriting. I'm a published poet. I've written ads, songs. I'm a songwriter. I've gotten awards for all my writing. I've written screenplays, scripts, plays, stage plays, but never a book. And wow, am I learning. So, bought a lot of books, read a lot of books, but it's the first one I've written. So it's a whole new process, and it's giving, even at this late stage in my life, it's giving me a whole new respect for the authorship of the book. Even though I've got not a lot of knowledge going into it about how to protect myself, but nevertheless, as a writer, it's still a first-time experience. So this is really interesting to go from the script, now writing a book. So this is the first time it's the exact opposite for me. So now I've got to let go of stuff that the movie was going to do and show that I have to put in the book a whole different way. Because the book's going to allow me to expand. I don't have to just stay in this one period of Morton's life where background information is learned through expository dialogue, background information is learned through news flashes, boom, cut to present story, hit talk show, meets girl, falls in love, hit show, blah, 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 a couple controversies, boom, does a bad thing, gets exposed, show taken away from him, falls apart, and that's the movie. Well, the book, it's much too small for just, that's a chapter in the book. So the book is allowing me to go all the way back to Dad, Hyannisport, growing up with the Kennedys, the whole bit. So it's a fascinating experience.
Did you tape the interviews, or did you
Yeah.
take some meticulous
No,
notes?
22 hours of tapes. 22 hours of tapes. So yeah, which are hard to listen to, a lot of them, because he got very emotional during a lot of them. And then in 2001, I was in Hawaii directing a movie, which unfortunately never came out. It only came out on DVD, but it was a prequel to Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. And it was, called The Hidden Trail. And we shot it in Hawaii. It was a lot of the same people and stuff, but it didn't quite make it for American audiences. So they sold it in Hawaii and the Pacific, but it was made in Hawaii, and it was a fun experience being there for it. And while I was there, I get a call that from Morton's wife that Morton's in the hospital. He's doing really bad. I know he wanted to talk to you, and I don't know if you want to come back or whatever. So I proceeded. Every night I would leave the set, and I would come back to my house after the set, and I'd pick up the phone and call Morton and see the sign and talk to him. And then one night around 3 in the morning, I get a call from his wife saying he died. Oh, no. So I excused myself, took a hiatus, got on the plane, fly back for the funeral. I actually did one of the talks at the funeral, the eulogies. And I went on after Gloria Allred, the lawyer. But anyway, gave a little eulogy and stuff. I get on the plane, I go back to Hawaii. I land in Hawaii, and I'm going back to the house, and on the radio here, Papa John Phillips has just died today. So for that next 6 months, the word in Hollywood was, if Chip Miller wants to write your biography.
Don't.
Anyway. So yes, we're trying to write Morton Downey's story now. I was going to tell you a quick story about Bobby Darin, and I can make it really quick because I don't want to run short on time, but there was a book called Roman Candle, and it was written about Bobby Darin's brief life and what had happened to him and so forth, and how his sister was really his mother, and he never really knew it until his deathbed, and he always knew he was going to die in his 30s because he had a... So it was a fascinating book, and I was a big fan of Darin, so we tried to develop it as a movie back in the 80s, and I was working with the producer of The Exorcist, Noel Marshall, and we were pretty close to getting a screenplay out of it. And then one thing led to another, and the Darren estate got to be a little bit weird, and one thing, and it didn't happen, and so Noel decided not to pick the option up, and the book went away and disappeared. And then, of course, you know how it all resurrected years later as Beyond the Sea with Kevin Spacey, and based on the same book. And the Darren family were very excited by Kevin doing Bobby Darin because he was a big star at the time. But when the movie came out and was over with, the Darren family was mortified. Because first of all, Kevin Spacey was like 15 years older than Bobby Darin was through the entire movie. And he did a great job singing, but he decided to do a very stylistic approach to the biography. Anybody ever see that movie? Very stylistic. It's not an actual biography. They break out in song, middle of the kitchen kind of thing, you know. It's like a musical more than a movie, and there's flashbacks all over the place. It's very hard to know, are we now, are we then? So it didn't do very well. It did well for Kevin's singing career, but it didn't do well for the book. So again, it was one of those things that I could look at and go like, well, I was involved in the development of that way back, and we couldn't get it off the ground, and then somebody did get it off the ground and still didn't make it. So it's interesting when certain movies and certain books just don't quite successfully make the journey, even when they do get made, for whatever reason. So it's the choice of the filmmakers and how they made it, or who's starring in it, or the audience's temperance at the time. It's always hard to say. It's always a guessing game. Okay, same thing with Gene Vincent. Anybody ever hear of Gene Vincent? Bee-bop-a-lula, she's my baby. I bought the rights to the book about Gene Vincent, written by one of the Gene Vincent's Blue Caps, band member Johnny Meeks. We bought the rights. That was one of the first things I ever did when I was a development executive at a place called the Film Consortium. And it was Broderick Crawford's old company, and I was the development executive there. And I bought this book, and we just thought it was a wonderful piece. And Gene Vincent died early. We thought it'd make a great story. And he was very famous in England after he lost his fame here. He was still famous in England, and he was actually a great influence on the Beatles. Even after America discarded him after a few of his hits, he was huge over there. So it was an interesting kind of story about the way America throws away their stars a lot. We've done that with a lot of things. We threw away our blues. It took other countries to rediscover our own blues for us and stuff. So anyway, great story. We got a great cast together for this one. We set it up at Paramount again, and we had a very young man who had only done one movie, a movie called Taps. That was Tom Cruise. And we had a young man who hadn't done anything yet called Sean Penn. Tom was going to play Eddie Cochran, the rocker Eddie Cochran, Summertime Blues. And Sean Penn was going to be playing Johnny Meeks, the Blue Caps. And a young Nicolas Cage, who was still going by Nicholas Coppola at the time, was going to play Gene Vincent. That was our cast. And then we had a young man we had just signed to play Little Richard, and his name was Prince. And he hadn't made his first album yet. That was the cast. And we took Nick Cage. We didn't take the cast with us, but Nick and Tom did. We took Nick and Tom and me, went to something like every studio in town, every independent town, pitching the project, everywhere, pitching. We didn't have a script. We had a book, we had a treatment, we had these actors. And everywhere got turned down. But the final icing on the cake that told me why we're being turned down is also the irony of our business. We turned down over at, I think it was Warner Brothers. Yeah, it was at Warner Brothers. And Jonathan Scheinberg was the executive. And he said, Chip, can I see outside in the hall for a second? So we just pitched, and so Nick and Tom stayed in the office, and we walked out in the hallway with John, and John said, Chip, I love this project. I mean, it's a great project. I can't make a movie with these kids. And a year later, every one of those kids were huge stars. So they weren't willing to take a shot at any one of those kids. Literally, a year later, one by one, boom, boom, this one, and it was within 2 years, they were all huge stars. So it was just a lack of foresight. He was basing so much character on these kids. I'm going, it's not about those kids. It's about this script, the treatment, this movie, this character. They'll bring it to life. Trust me, we'll have a great director. Nah, I can't get, but they're not box office. How am I going to sell a movie on these names? So it just never happened. It failed to materialize. And I still thought about it once in a while, resurrecting it, but it'll be one of those things that probably will never happen. And the longer further away we get from it, the further away we're going to get from sitting at a table like this and saying, anybody here at Gene Vincent? And I only got one or two of you said yes to here today. So anyway, but that's so that book never happened. But Johnny Meeks, who wrote it, by the way, just died about a month ago. Okay, three more. I'll make really quick.
Do we have one that did happen? You're depressing me.
One that did happen. Of ones I've worked on, well, yeah, they've happened, unfortunately not with me involved. I mean, the Beyond the Sea happened, and the ones that I've been involved in are still happening. So it's been a long journey, but no, none of the ones I'm telling you about necessarily actually did happen, but they're still in process to some degree.
It's a lesson.
Yeah, it is. It's a lesson reality. Is probably the best way to answer
Yeah.
that. Yeah, that's reality.
Let me just interject.
Yeah.
The next speaker is in the process of his book remake.
Fantastic.
That follows up with this one.
Fantastic. So he can tell you the good parts. He can say, yes, I happened.
He can tell you the nightmares of that.
Yeah, and hopefully he'll see it made
Yeah.
one day, because
Yeah.
just the development process is meaningless until it's on the screen,
Right,
unfortunately.
you
Chip?
described that already.
It's obviously, it's not the pitch as a cartoon character walking into a pitch session to get these things accomplished. It's got to be the other end of the people listening to your story.
Yeah, it does.
Timing.
And
There's
I
so
would
many
think
things.
that most of us here don't have your ability to communicate, and you almost have to learn that to get into somebody's door and pitch
Yeah.
them.
And you have to deal with a lot of things that I didn't have to deal with, that now even I have to deal with. The first time I had to deal with this particular phenomenon, now everybody has to deal with, is when I pitched, God, I remember, I'm trying to blank on his name, very famous producer now. If I said his name, you'd know it, I just can't think of it. He used to be a Warner Brothers executive, now he's made a bazillion movies. I think he's won Academy Awards and everything. But anyway, he's a very heavy-set, effeminate guy, and he has, for some reason, has this affinity for long pretzel sticks, big cigar pretzels. And usually, a big pile of them sits in his office. Now, when he went to Warner Brothers, we went to pitch him a project. I can't even remember what the project was. We went to pitch him a project. We're sitting there, and it's when the headset phones were just coming out. Right? I barely even saw him on anybody. And so he's sitting in front of us, and the first, we get 10 minutes, you get 10, 15 minutes to pitch. And it's like, okay, Chip, fire away. I go, okay. So the setting is, and right as I'm talking, he's, yeah, it was a little distracting. It was like playing golf or something, but not terribly distracting, but a little distracting. And then, as I'm talking, and I swear to God, this is just how it went, I said, I wish I knew what the pitch was, but I'll make one up. So anyway, so Johnny sees the murderer coming right out the door, but he sees him himself. And as I'm saying this, he goes, at what time? I went, well, we don't really establish the time. He goes, 7 o'clock be okay? I went, well, it doesn't matter. Yeah, I guess. He wasn't talking to me. He was talking to somebody on the phone about making a dinner date. That's now reality, because now it's like, yeah, go on. I'm here. I'm listening. Okay, and then what happens in Act 2? Now they're distracted by everything under the sun. You get like 5 minutes if you're lucky. So it's about the person, it's about the circumstances, it's about if you can get an agent or somebody with strength to be with you in the meeting, that they'll give you more time, because if you're just an amateur, you're in and out in 5 minutes, if you're lucky enough to get that time. Normally, you're not even going to be able to pitch to a yes or no person. It took me 15 years to get past pitching development people, because all development people do is go, okay, sounds good. I'll be back in a couple weeks. And they go on their hands and knees and they go, do you like this? Do you like that? And everything that the boss says, no, I don't like it, they don't like either. They don't necessarily say, but boss, they don't want to be fired. You don't like it, boss? I don't like it. So that's just the kind of way it works. Nobody takes chances. Very rare that an executive will take a chance with his job and say yes to something that might bomb out. So it's easier to say no, unless you got, big stars sitting in front of you. Then it's a whole other story. So, yeah, it's the reality. I mean, we all know that. I mean, it's the downside of our industry, but like I say, it's a great place to be a millionaire. Yeah. Okay, I want to talk about this one because you'll find this one interesting. When my grandmother passed away at 107 years old, at 106, she had called me down to her deathbed in North Carolina, where she was. And she called me into the room and she said, I want to let you know that there's something that I've never told the family. It's been a secret to her, and I'm only telling you as my oldest grandchild, because you're in the film business and I want you to know that someone's going to be contacting you soon to talk about this particular project. And he's an author, an Irish author. And the subject is my brother that no one knows I had. I went, you had a brother? Because I knew you had sisters. And evidently her brother Harry, some of you may have told us to, but her brother Harry, when she was 23 years old, when she was leaving for America, her brother Harry was 19 and he was hanged for murder, for murdering someone that evidently no one thought he committed, but he was hanged for murder. And it was a disgraceful thing. She was embarrassed. It was a disgrace for the family. So she came to America and just put it behind her and never talked about it. Never told her kids, never told nobody. So this was shocking to me when I learned that my grandmother had a brother and I had a great uncle, or a granduncle, whatever you call it. So, as she promised, within 6-7 months, this Irish author, Marcus Rourke, who's a famous Irish author, he's written like 9-10 books, and calls me and says, I am writing a book on your Uncle Harry Gleason. And he said, because I believed he was framed, and I believed he wasn't guilty, and I think there's plenty of reasons for overturning that case, even though it's 75 years, or now at the time it was 60 years ago. He said, I think there's something very important there, but I'm not sure I can get to the bottom of it, but I'm about to do this book. I'd like to have your cooperation and so forth. So I did. I told him what I knew about my grandmother. And then when the book was written, it came out. It wasn't a great book. It was just okay. It was more like a memoir, or more like a documentary kind of style book. But I knew immediately that if anybody's going to make this movie, I'm going to make it. So I don't know when I'm going to make it, or if I even have the capacity to make it, but I'm going to tie this book up now and take it off the market. So I bought the book outright, tied it up, and I didn't know if I wanted to write the book, because I didn't know if I knew enough about my own culture. I hadn't even been to Ireland at that point. I've been to Ireland since, like 5 times, but I've never been there. So I didn't even know if I even liked being Irish. I always fantasized being Italian. I hated all that green bread and red hair and freckles and all that stuff. So, the Clancy brothers, I mean, it was all, no, Grandma, don't make me wear green. But then, of course, as we would get older, we all start appreciating who we are much later in life. So, of course, I came to come to grips with all that. But I didn't know what I was going to do with it. I just bought the rights to it. And then my grandmother died, and I sat on it for a long time. And then when Liam and I had finished writing our project, the one I told you about with Penny Marshall, I brought it to him and I showed him the book. And he didn't like the book, but he loved the storyline. And he said, we should try to pitch it, put a little treatment, a little synopsis together. Just use the book as source material. Don't bring the book in the pitch because it'll disappoint people. And just pitch it. Bring the photos from the book because the photos are cool. And we pitch it. So Liam and I, again, pitched it pretty much all over town. And everybody thought it was just, well, where's the ending? He committed this murder and he hanged. So why do we want to tell the story about this guy? We didn't know the answer. We just said, well, because it's interesting, he's my granduncle. I don't know. So we didn't really know the answer because he was hanged for murder. And he never proclaimed his innocence during the trial. So just to backtrack a little bit now to fill you in. Harry was a farmer. He was 20 years old. Every morning when he would cross his farm to go to work on this opposite farm, he would cross the farm of a widow, a attractive 32-year-old widow named Molly McCarthy, who had 2 kids and was a real hot lady. And they were friends, and they'd have tea every morning together and talk and chat, and then he'd go on his way to work. And they did this for a couple of years. Everybody thought they were having an affair. They were having something, but they weren't. They were just talking. They were just friends. And one day he comes to her place, and her body is found in a ditch outside her house. And they're carved up, head almost decapitated, horrible, brutal murder. He's shot, calls the police. Police come in. They bring him in for questioning, the whole bit. The investigation lasts about 4 days, and Harry's arrested for being the prime suspect for the murder. And everybody's shocked. They can't believe it. Not Harry. He's such a gentle. Why would he do this? It's terrible. And Harry, they signed him a lawyer, and he wouldn't proclaim his innocence. They said, Harry, why don't you say you didn't do it? You know you could have done this. You were over at such a. We have proof that. He wouldn't say where he was. He wouldn't say anything. He just said, I'm in the hands of God. God will provide. He was just like one of those kind of characters. And so the trial went on, and he was found guilty. Never said a word during the trial. It was covered in all the Irish newspapers. This was 1928, 29, and he was hanged for murder. Went to the gallows, never said a word, and put shame on the family. End of story. Well, what Marcus Rourke found were a couple of interesting things about Harry's story that no one knew. And the one thing he found out was that Harry was gay. And in 1929, to be gay, homosexual, was a far worse scandalous crime than murder. And that's a fact. That's not just me saying that. That's a fact. If you were homosexual, far more embarrassing and humiliating than being a murderer. So he hid from that. He was so ashamed of it that he didn't tell anybody. So all of a sudden I thought, oh my God, we're getting our story here because now it's playing into the gay rights thing, the whole gay thing. There's a powerful story here about a man who stayed in the closet and how that was so unfortunately suppressive, and he could have saved himself. If it was a different time, he could have saved himself. He could have just said, of course I'm not, I'm gay, I wouldn't have an affair with her, you know. But he couldn't say that, so that was our storyline. We went back out with it again, new script. We called it The Silence, is the name of the story. Same thing, we got to say to guys, we love it, but now we got a gay guy who murdered somebody. I went, well, that's true, but we don't think he murdered him. But you don't have proof. A gay guy murdered somebody, so he still come out of the theater going, well, who are we supposed to feel sorry for here, Molly? Back on the shelf. Last year, was it last year? No, 2015. I got my sister, my baby sister, unfortunately died last year, calls me and said, I got a call from the Irish Times, and they're looking to talk to anybody from the Gleason family. And I said they should talk to you because you deal with publishing and all that stuff. And I said, well, what do they want? She said they want to talk about Harry Gleason, something about he's being exonerated. I went, what? So I called it up, and as it turns out, all 2 years unbeknownst to me, the Project Innocence, you've all heard of the Project Innocence, does DNA and all that. Well, this was the Irish Project Innocence. And I think it was called Dublin Project Innocence. And they had stumbled on Marcus's book years before. And one of the lawyers there decided to look into this case. And he turned over evidence that Molly McCarthy was killed by 5 people. And they were all members of the IRA that were all doubling as county officials. The chief of police, the mayor, the fire police, the city councilman, all in the town of Marhill where they were from, all were screwing Molly McCarthy. And she was screwing all of them and was pregnant with one of their kids. And so they all mutually said she knows too much about us, she knows about the IRA, are involved with the IRA, she's got to be put out. And so they put her out of pasture, and they kind of subliminally set Harry up as the patsy. He had proof of this, and so he proved it, and it took 2 years to prove it, and Ireland forgave Harry, and last year Harry Gleason was the first posthumous person pardoned for a crime in Irish history by the President of Ireland. And so now we have our ending.
Story.
The time of Marcus
Yeah.
Rourke's book, this was not cleared yet. Why was Marcus Rourke interested in?
Well, he was a lawyer and an author, and he was from Marhill, the village.
What is
He was
it
from
called?
the village Marhill where this took place, so it touched on him personally as something that happened in his own village. So we brought the book to the Feinsteins, Harry Feinstein and the whole family over there, Harvey Feinstein, and Harvey Feinstein.
Weinstein.
Weinstein. I'm really having brain farts. But 71. So,
If you want to make it into a musical, though.
there you go. Yeah, Harvey Weinstein. We brought it to Harry Weinstein. We don't have it set there yet, but we are presently in negotiation. Negotiations started about a month ago, so we have a lawyer on it, so we'll see what happens. But it's the first place we took it out to. We think we have a movie. We'll get it set up. So I'm not sure where, but now it's talking. Now we've got a homosexual theme. We've got the Project Innocence theme working. We got the DNA theme working. We got the whole
Corrupt local
whole corrupt thing. Yeah. So we'll probably do it. And again, not that I'm caught up on this modern period thing at the same time, but because the Irish Innocence Project is so powerful, when Weinstein asked us what was our take on the script, and I came up with the take, I thought it was brilliant. I said, it's kind of a cross between In the Name of the Father meets All the President's Men. Because what you've got is the contemporary stories, the lawyers feverishly working, turning over evidence, more evidence, reading, and they're just turning over, while you keep going back into flashbacks through the turning evidence to see the story of Harry and how it all happened.
Right.
So this way it doesn't become loaded down in just an Irish period piece that people, I don't want to see some old Irish period piece. It kind of brings it up in contemporary times. So that has a lot to do with a lot of subjects in general, is that when a book or a script of any subject matter can touch upon general universality, general themes that touch timeless themes, there's always a place for it. Doesn't matter when it was written. That's why the Bible's still such a big bestseller. It's got timeless themes in it.
You think you can get funding from the project and maybe the Irish?
Well, I think we're gonna get, but we already got some of the funding lined up because the Irish Tourism Center, which partially did our Irish project for PBS, our big dance thing we did for the Academy a couple of years ago. So we got a lot of attention with our 2 Irish shows, and I think we'll probably pull about Travels West and all that stuff. Very similar kind of a project. And the book was purchased by Will Smith, because he loves Westerns. And he wanted to make a Western. He tied up this book, and I had owned the book at the time. I had optioned the book because I wanted to make it. But when Will Smith came along, I said, well, I consulted Will Smith. I'll retain a few points in the book, and Will Smith will make it. That'd be great, awesome. So it sat for 6.5 years and never really got made. I kept wondering when it's getting made. And I still had my percentage profits, but now my payments were over because it was past the 5-year mark. And it was still sitting. And then finally, they announced they were going to do it. And what it was a remake of the Wild Wild West, the TV show. You remember when Will Smith made that?
Yeah.
Oh my
And he was
God.
just using our book as source material for a few of the stagecoach scenes and stuff. So again, he was taking a property out of the market to do a different property, and it never happened anyway because it bombed. Just goes to show. Okay, last one. Anybody remember the TV show, The Outer Limits?
Yes, we control the vertical.
You control it. Anybody remember a writer named Joseph Stefano? Anybody ever see Psycho? Black Widow?
Yes.
All written by Joe Stefano. Joe Stefano is the only scriptwriter in probably the history of scriptwriting, or at least in Alfred Hitchcock's history, that literally when his script was sold to Hitchcock and to the studio, not one syllable was changed. It went from the page to the screen. A rarity indeed. Never, ever happened. So he was a strong writer. He went on after Psycho to create, co-produce, and write many of the episodes for The Outer Limits. And one of the episodes he wrote was called Ebony. It was about a black planet. It was about a planet that civilization lives inside the planet instead of outside the planet. And Joe wrote a book about it, and Mel Torme's son, Tracy Torme, and myself bought the rights to the book. And we tried to make it for the longest time, and it wasn't happening. And we tried to write a couple different scripts about it. That wasn't happening. And then Joseph died about 2 years ago. Lost some great talent. And after he died, a lot of attention got put on this property. So suddenly, out of nowhere, Sony Pictures in England, Sony UK, contacts us saying, we understand you own the rights to the Ebony. And we said, yeah, we're not doing anything with it. You know, I don't paid like $5,000 for it. He says, well, we want it because Spielberg wants to make it. So that is now in development at Steven Spielberg's DreamWorks. It's set for 2020, and we sold that book for $80,000. We bought it for $5,000. And I don't even know how much he'll use out of the book, because it was only a half-hour episode, an hour episode, an Outer Limits. But it turns out Spielberg was a big fan of The Outer Limits, so when he heard that we had the book. So here's this little thing. Who would have guessed that Spielberg would have come my way for that? But wonderful stuff. So, anyway, but that's all. I think that's all I got for the moment. I can go on and tell you about some other things, but I want to leave room for any questions and comments.
You were able to buy that book outright?
Yeah.
So that's obviously different than having an option for 2 or
Yes.
3 years, which is typical. It's about 2 years.
It could be any. Options can run 2 to 6 years. They could run 5 months to 6 years. The normal is a year to 2 years, and
Yeah.
options are based on how long you think you need to make it.
Right.
So if you're a writer, a script writer, you're buying a book, think carefully about how long it's going to take you to develop a screenplay from that book.
Right.
Versus if you're a filmmaker and you're buying the book because you got a deal at one of the studios and you're Steven Spielberg, you're not worried about how long the script's going to take. You're Steven Spielberg. Now you're just buying the book outright. You don't even want an option. You just want to control it for all time.
Right. But that's well, you have a much longer option on the Edgar Casey.
The Edgar Casey one was a
50
unique
years.
deal.
That's
Unique deal.
unusual.
Yeah, it's probably because I had been there before.
Yeah.
That's all I
The
can
whole time you
imagine.
were
I can't-
sitting
I got no
there,
other
you were
answer.
sitting there, she was
Right.
investigating.
Yeah.
My favorite book is Dune,
Yeah.
and there's been a couple movies made of it.
Yes.
And I read a couple years ago, another screenplay was out there about it, but I never heard anything.
Yeah, I haven't either. I haven't heard any more about that, but both of the other movies really ruined the book, didn't they?
Yeah, okay.
I remember the first one that came out, they kind of handed you an entire storyline because it was so hard to follow. Because if
Yeah.
you had never read the book, I
Yeah.
actually read them all, but
Yeah.
going in blank, if you'd never read the book, it was a very, very difficult story
Yeah.
to follow.
Well, a lot of
I
that
remember
book
how they
is-
tried to remedy that, but that was a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
A lot of that book is what people were thinking. I think very hard to show.
Absolutely, absolutely agree. Yeah, there's, like I said, there's some unfilmable stories. Remember that movie, Whose Life Is It Anyway? About the paraplegic, I think Mary Tyler Moore played the
Yeah, yeah,
female
yeah.
version on
Was
Broadway.
it was first a play, yeah. it
That was a
play.
play
Yeah.
by the famous blacklisted writer, famous guy, Dalton Trumbo. And they've tried to make that movie twice, once with Richard Dreyfuss, was
Right.
a small independent, and Mary Tyler Moore did it on Broadway.
Right.
And there's a bigger movie there, because it's all about war and all that, but because it's from one person's point of view, and it's from that locked position of being in bed, and it just was, they made movies since. I think they made a movie with Javier Bardem or something, a couple years ago or
See
something.
Inside.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so the thought, that still concept still is thought of, but it's just hard to get that original book ever made. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Oh, yes.
A lot of people in the group think that we should perhaps try starting to produce our own scripts because they're never going to go into place in the industry. Do you think that's a viable option for,
Well, when you say produce, what do you mean by produce? You can get it made into movies?
right?
Do you have financing?
No.
I mean, that's the first
A
question.
lot of people with talents and we have some camera option, people that can do the shooting.
Yeah, and you can make,
Like a co-op.
yeah, well, there's been actually,
Yeah,
I'm
that's
actually
a good
gonna
word
name,
for it.
I wouldn't know about these normally, because I don't really, I don't deal too many with local filmmakers that much. Except for I've had a few brushings with them, like Kim Waltrip and stuff, and my standards are a little different, I just
Right.
don't. But anyway, there was a project here, I wish I could remember the guy's name, Robert something, you guys might even know him, because he's a resident of La Quinta, Robert, anyway. He made a movie called Cry Murder, and it was really interesting. He made it up he put together $50,000 and got every person he knew that was an actor in the desert, including people who lived in his own home community, and everybody free director, producer, anybody who needed a break and wanted, some young kid who was in film school and would do anything to direct a movie, and he put this whole thing together, and he made this movie called Cry Murder. And then he actually came to us at Desert Camp Studios and said, we're looking to get this thing posted and edited, but we don't have any money. And so I looked at the footage, and I thought the footage was okay. I thought the script was okay. I thought the acting was abysmal. It looked like amateur acting. I said, well, the only way I'll do this is we'll invest. We'll go ahead and do it for you. I'll sign an editor. We'll put up like 50 grand for you. We'll be the post-production for you. But you got to let me do some things to the movie that's not currently in the movie. Some things with editing that you may not like, or that your director may not like. And so we did. There was like one person there was somebody who gave them money to act. Somebody gave like $5,000 if they could have a part in the film. And they were horrible. They were pulling every scene down so horribly. So what I did there was I kept this lady in the movie, but I took all her lines away. I gave her reaction. But the funny thing is less is more. If she was in the movie saying all of her horrible, and then you are going where? It would have been terrible. Now she just goes, huh? What? And you're wherever. You see her character. So she actually looks better than if she opened her mouth. So we did do that movie, and it was the same thing. It was a co-op. Now, it didn't go anywhere, and I can't expect it to. Even with our expertise on it and everything, it looks really good. He put it on a DVD. He made it himself and financed it. He made like 500 DVDs and gave it to cast and crew, and he premiered it at the Camelot. And he had a little red carpet. So to come back to you, is like it's depending on what you want to do it for. If you want to produce this for the satisfaction of the art, to say, hey, wouldn't it be fun if we all made a movie together? Find some financing or some people to back you and do some things, mainly equipment, mainly post-production and insurance. Don't do it without insurance, it's a mistake. And that's gonna be your costliest factor. Even to make a little $50,000 movie, you're gonna have to come up with about 5-6 grand of insurance. And they do it for those reasons. And if for some reason you come up with a gem and you go, wow, look what we created, it's unbelievable. Then be one of those 1 in a million odds and get out to Hollywood and find an agent and say, I think we got something special here, you know? I mean, that horrible Witches of East, what was it, the horror movie? Not Witches of Eastwick.
Blair
Witch
Witch
Project.
Blair Witch
Blair
Project.
Blair Witch Project. I mean,
Blair Witch.
they made that for $15,000, and then they put $75,000 promotion into it, called it an $85,000 movie, put it out there, and the thing made bazillions. Then they made the sequel, and they gave the filmmakers $22 million to make the sequel, and it made about $13,000.
Oh my God.
So it's not really all about the money, it's about, so they had something unusual. I wasn't a big fan of Blair Witch Project, but it was unique, and that was the first time we were seeing video point of view, and it was kind of new and documentary style, and they hit on it. So now it's old school doing that kind of crap. There's been a million films since doing the same thing. So if you got something unique, and you got some really talented people and a good story, but the thing I would do is if you're going to co-op and do like a produce work inside as a collaboration, main thing to do is all settle on like a committee that makes sure it starts on the paper first before you waste any time doing anything else. Make sure that thing comes out solid as hell, which is going to mean collaborating on a script together, all seeing the same script together, especially if it's one person's script and 3 other people want to change it. That's the hard part, but it'd be a good exercise because that is what the real world's about. Once it leaves your paper and your mind, it's no longer yours. If you're going to try to get it made, it's collaborative all the way. From selling it to making it, it's collaborative. So you may as well get used to people's opinions and do's and don'ts and ups and downs. But I think it's a great idea. But you might want to have some production company, maybe put up some gear. I'll be more than happy to listen to projects you've got. And but have some financing for your insurance and that kind of thing. And don't promise actors they're going to get a free credit. Even if you give actors scale, look, I don't have any money, but I'll give you $100 for 5 days.
You know,
$100,
that's-
that kind of thing.
That's the thing that amazes me, because, you know, about 3 months ago, I got pulled in on when they were first talking about shooting the Shatner documentary in the desert, you know. And the vying back and forth between some of the people that are involved and the way they're doing the recruitment, like, just like yesterday, I got the notice that now we need 20 to 30 years old from Wednesday through Saturday, you know, and it's like, you know, one person that knows that they have this group of people is not willing to share with this person
Right. Oh,
because
yeah.
they weren't approached first,
Oh, yeah.
you know?
And especially here in the desert.
Yeah.
I find that,
This film has been a nightmare. I mean, the past 3 weeks have been such ridiculous headaches, but at the same time, we've had so many of our members that have been picked up, and like, we've got some members now that are down there for the shoot, you know, and stuff like that.
As extras?
And they just think it's great.
well, that's it, you know, it is fun.
Yeah,
I mean, let's face it, it's better than being, you know, working in a bank.
yeah,
So, but there's disadvantages, you know, like mostly you're broke all the time, but
yeah.
if you look at it like fun and not caring